So, first question is like how your filmmaking journey started. What inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Well, maybe I should first start saying that I'm in the middle of Barcelona because I'm currently premiering my film in Spain. So uh, I came here to do press and stuff like that. So I'm in the middle of the street. If you hear any noises, that's why. Well, I started already a long time ago. I didn't, I didn't really like got into cinema until very late when I was studying in the university. Like I wasn't very aware of the capabilities that cinema had, or I wasn't so aware of like like to the worlds that cinema could transport you as a like as an art. But I then started watching a lot of movies, and I started also working with colleagues on different projects, audiovisual projects like short films and so on. And I realized that I really loved, because I already wrote stories by my own, and I also painted, and I also did a lot of different arts, but I had never tried cinema or audiovisual like as an art. And it was back then when I was in the university that I realized that I really, really loved the format, like all the possibilities that cinema gives you to express different stories. So yeah, it was a late encounter, but a really really deep one. Especially when I shared for the first time a short film that I made, or two short films that I made with people from Costa Rica. I really fall in love with that connection that cinema brings to the audience.
So let's talk about your film Memories of a Burning Body. So
Sure.
it's a like it's explore collective female narrative. So what inspired the film?
Oh, okay. Well, it started basically like a conversation with my grandmother. I was trying to understand how it was for them. I mean, for my grandmothers when they were growing up. Like, I never got the chance to ask them if they really enjoyed their sexualities, or if all their pregnancies were wanted and desired. I never had these deep conversations with them. And with my grandmother, that because the other one was already she had already passed. But with my grandmother from my father's side, I started this conversation. Unfortunately, she was already too old. She was 93 years old, so I couldn't really go deep in the conversation with her. It was very hard because she was already having memory issues. So I started talking to other women her age, like around 70, 80, 90 years old. And from these conversations, the film was born. I realized that there was a need from them to talk about all the things that they experienced, that they lived, that they had never talked to anybody else before, not even their daughters, their mothers, their granddaughters, like they had never had these conversations with anybody, and they trusted me, their stories. So I realized that I had to do something that dignified these stories in a way that allowed them to express these stories, these feelings, these a lot of these emotions and experiences that they already had, in a way that people could connect with those stories. So that's how Memories of a Burning Body was born.
So the as you said, like the film is based on real women stories. So how did you gather these experiences and challenge, and what challenges did you face in adapting them?
It was a difficult journey, let's say, because it definitely, when I started talking to them right away, they told me that they want to be kept anonymous, that they didn't want to be recognized, because these topics are still such a taboo in our society. Like talking about sexuality after a certain age, it's still a huge taboo. So in that sense, it was hard. It was a journey of them trusting me with them, their stories. Like, it was a process of building trust. It was also a process of understanding what the movie could be about, because they told me a lot of stories, a lot of things, even experiences about how they felt in their present days. I also did the investigation during COVID times. So it was also, I think those things also permeate in the film in a way, because they talked a lot about loneliness, about aging, about being old, and and facing almost death, because they were so scared about death. So these things came into the movie as well, but I really wanted to focus on their experiences as females, as women in society, and how they understood themselves as women in society, and how they learned to be a woman, and what it meant for them to be a woman, and how they experienced sexuality in the different stages of their lives. And they told me, like, it's about, like, understanding how they live their sexuality nowadays also comes through remembering how they learn it. So it was a journey of memory or recovery of memories, and it was a journey also of simply talking and understanding themselves. It was like a really get to know themselves as well through this journey of talking to me about their own stories. Like, it was a very deep work on how they really understood everything. So it was a really beautiful process. I don't know. It was like I said, like building trust and connecting to them, and also sharing my own experience of how it was for me. And it was mostly a dialogue, what we have. It was an interview. It was mostly like a dialogue.
So, was there a particular story or testimony that deeply affected you during making this?
Uh, about their stories, or a film in
About their
general, or
story.
was
About their story, like during research.
I mean, it definitely surprised me how much violence there was. Like, I didn't expect it. Like, somehow I assumed there was, but I never realized how much, or how hard it was for them in so many ways. Like, so much frustration, so much violence, so much not knowing, not understanding, not, like, it's like having a body that goes through all these transformations without no knowledge at all. Like, even their period, when they got their period, they didn't understand what it was. No one explained. And there was so little knowledge, so little, communication about these topics when they were growing up, that it's very hard to put myself into this place, because for me it was different. I had a different experience, but it was also very confronting, like, to understand that we came from this, like, this is my grandmother, or this could have been my grandmother, and this is what she experienced. And yeah, it was very shocking. It was very, very shocking to understand their point of view, their reality, their experiences, and also how much violence there was, which still nowadays, there is so much violence for so many women around the world, and it's hard to recognize it, and it's hard to confront it. But it's good to, like, the film makes us look, like, it gives us the opportunity to have these hard and real conversations with our own, like, women from our families. So that's a nice thing. And it also surprised me a lot, the will for living that they had. Like, they were, even if they're old and they're, like, expected to do nothing because they're already, like, more than 65, so they don't have to work, and so on and so forth. They had such a will to live. Like, they want to do so many things. Like, they're still studying, they're still writing books, they're still, like, doing things, like wanting to buy something, or wanting to build something, or, like, engaged in real projects. Even when you, as a young person, may think, like, it's already too late, it's already, you already lived your life, enjoy and do nothing. And it's like they're doing so many things, and it's so lovely to see that will to live so strong. I loved it.
Okay, okay, brilliant. So, like independent filmmaking is hard and getting funds is hard. So, like, what was your challenge to getting the funds and producing this film?
But it was very hard, especially because this film was developed as a documentary, but in a way it looks more like a fiction at the end. So it's a sort of a hybrid, and hybrids are really hard to develop, I believe, because in the industry there's still so much, like, structure in a way. Like, there are funds for documentaries and there are funds for fiction, And when I applied to documentaries, they were like, no, this is not a documentary. You're going to work with actresses. And when I applied to fiction, and what are the voices for? You know, like, when are we going to, why are we going to hear that the whole movie? So it was really hard to explain what the film was going to be like. So at some point we had to do like a teaser as well, like do a teaser so that we could make people better understand how the film could be, you know, and that gave us the opportunity to access to different fundings that we had already applied and be rejected. So it was a difficult process, and at the end it was funded or financed as a documentary. So we had very little money because documentaries still receive less money than fiction. So we had less money, but we were producing a fiction in a way because we were working with actresses and a whole crew, you know, and lighting and stuff like that. So it was like a challenging film in that way that, yeah, it mixed elements. So yeah, it's still hard to explain to the industry these things.
So it has been shown in various film festivals all around the world. So what has been the audience reaction towards the film?
Yes. Well, it has been lovely for definitely for us. It has been a huge surprise how well people have connected to the film, which has been lovely. Like we didn't, you know, when you're doing the film, you're just doing the film. You're just trying to finish the film, and when you share the film and when you complete this cycle of, you know, like connecting with the audience, you never know what to expect. And in our case, it has been beautiful since the beginning. We premiered in the Berlinale and we won the audience award. And then we went to France and we also won the audience award. And then we went to Korea, South Korea, and we won the audience award. So it was like, wow, how is this film from Costa Rica connecting with so many different experiences? Because that's the thing, like I might have thought that the film was very local, that the film was very, you know, it was the Costa Rican experience for women, but then I realized that this is more a shared experience worldwide, like women all over have experienced something similar. And even if it's not your own reality, it must have been this reality for your grandmother or for your mother, you know. So there's a closeness to the stories everywhere. So it has been very, very beautiful to share the film with different audiences and to see how many people connect with these stories.
So what conversation like do you hope the film will ignite among the audiences both in Costa Rica and internationally?
I already premiered the film in Costa Rica, so it was a beautiful experience. Like really, this is a film that it's a small film that it's a sort of a documentary. So sometimes premiering the film in cinemas, in theaters, is quite hard because most of the people don't go to the films or don't go to the theaters to watch documentaries. And we were scared to see how people reacted. And in Costa Rica, it was awesome. Like we had such a great audience. Like people were recommending so much the film, and even young people, like they went to watch the film on their own and then they came back with their mothers and with their grandmothers. You know, like it was a movie that they had to share with somebody else. So that gave us a lot of, you know, like beautiful stories, you know, like women, when I did Q&As, for instance, in Costa Rica or worldwide, especially in Costa Rica, there was always women that came out with their own stories, you know, like they wanted to share their stories as well. So it was beautiful in that sense. And we had like beautiful reception from the audiences worldwide. Like it was very, very lovely that when we premiered in Berlin, for instance, there were a lot of young women that came out afterwards and asked us for hugs, for, you know, for a hug. Like they really felt connected to the film and they wanted to hug us in a way. Like it was a healing experience. So I think the film has been capable of starting a conversation, like, you know, like broaden up the conversation and having this dialogue outside of the film. Like many people have wrote to me like saying like, oh, I had a beautiful conversation with my grandmother afterwards. I had never talked about this with my mother, so I talked to her. I brought her to see the film, and we talked. So these conversations outside of the movie theater have been beautiful to experience.
So, like, are there any like your favorite films and filmmakers that you want to recommend? It's a list. Like, you can give me three or four films, filmmakers.
Well, there's a lot, and it all depends on what I'm doing. Like, for instance, usually for a project, I get obsessed with some films and some filmmakers, and I watch the films over and over again because I just feel so inspired. But let's say, like, I really like, I have a tendency to watch female directed films. um, but I don't know. Like I would love, I love the work of Alice Rohrwacher. She's an Italian German director, and I love her work. I also love, like I remember for this film, I watched a lot a film that it's from two documentalists from UK. It's called Notes on Blindness, which is a lovely documentary that is also fictionalized somehow. And I don't know, I saw so many movies. I also watched a film that it's called Voices of Chernobyl. Chernobyl. I don't know how that it's pronounced in English, but let's say, it's like I encounter myself with different films that I see something in them, and then I watch them again and again and again. I remember. But yeah, I don't know, like I would recommend for also the work of Lucrecia Martel, which is an Argentinian director, which I love. Um, who else? I don't know, many. Always that people ask me some names to give names, I always forget everything. It's like blank.
So, last question is like, if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, like, what advice would you give to them?
To trust themselves, to believe in their stories that they want to tell. Like it's not easy to do films. I don't think it's easy anywhere, especially in the countries that we don't have that much funding. Is harder for sure, but it's never easy. Like if you're in a big industry, then it's hard to be recognized because you're one of so many that want to do films. And if you're in a small industry, it might be easier to be recognized, but very hard to get funding. So, we all have our complications, our difficulties to do film. And I believe if you like, if you really trust in the story that you're like working on, and that you really tell this story from a true place, from an honest place, and you are telling this story from your heart, I believe that you will find a way. But you really have to be persistent, and you really have to work for it. It's like it's not a given. You really have to do the work. You really have to put yourself to write, put yourself to do fundings, applications and stuff like that. Like you really have to work. But if you believe in the story, trust yourself, trust in your inner voice and your perspective about how to tell the story, and accompany yourself with people that also trust your vision and also make your vision grow. Not only they say, "Oh yeah, it's perfect," but they also question it so that it grows and grows and grows, and it gets better and better and better. And yeah, I would say so. I would say that basically.